What if the part of you they said was too much wasn't intensity, but memory? Not of an event, but of a knowing, a vibration you carried before you were named, before the world wrapped its expectations around your skin, before you learned how to shrink, how to behave, how to blend. What if everything you've tried to fix in yourself was never broken, only sacred, and too radiant for a world still adjusting its eyes to the light? There are souls who don't arrive to fit in. They arrive to remember, to listen between the words, to hold what no one else dares to feel, to break the inherited silence. Maybe you are one of them, and maybe that's why it's felt so lonely. Because when your frequency is rare, your very presence becomes a mirror, and most people aren't ready to see themselves in that kind of reflection. They flinch, they flee, they tell you, tone it down, toughen up, stop making it so deep. But how can you live shallow when your essence was carved by depth? Place your hand here and feel this ache you've carried. It isn't emptiness. It's a threshold, a thin place between who you became to survive and who you were before the forgetting. It opens, it waits, it listens. They called it oversensitivity. But what if your nervous system is tuned to a subtler frequency? Not dysfunction, but design. You don't need to be healed. You need to be heard. Because underneath all your too much is the code of a rare architecture, a kind of beauty that can't be mass-produced. And the signs? They've always been there, in your body, in your breath, in the way you walked away from rooms that couldn't feel you, in the way you stayed quiet because the truth was too loud inside you. This is not the start of a video. This is the opening of a veil. There are 8 signs, not to diagnose, not to explain, but to remind, to touch the parts of you still curled at the edge of language, waiting for someone to say, "You were never wrong for being this way." And when the thread tightens, the field begins to listen. There is a thread without hands, a door that does not open, a breath that carries a name you forgot, a well where the water remembers you, a silence that knows your shape. Some truths do not begin, they resurface. But what rises after the silence is never just sound. It is memory, a shape forming under your ribs, a pulse that doesn't respond to logic. It's not sadness, it's not lack. It's a homesickness for a place you've never seen with your eyes, but never stopped feeling in your bones. There is a thread that hums beneath the skin. It pulls at night, in stillness, in solitude, and especially when the world around you feels loud, bright, and strangely hollow. You've felt it, haven't you? A kind of ache that follows you through crowded rooms, a subtle grief that appears even on your best days. Like someone was supposed to be here, and isn't. But here's the truth most never hear. This emptiness is not a defect, it is a map. Not drawn in ink, but in longing. Not showing roads, but frequencies. Because when you were born, you came with a signature. A sacred code the world was never meant to understand, only to witness. And somewhere along the way, you forgot. They called it depression. You tried to name it loneliness. But what if it was neither? What if it was your soul remembering who you were before language, before limits, before you had to explain why you felt too much, and still not enough? As you breathe, imagine this, a temple beneath your chest. Empty not because it's broken, but because it's waiting. For your real name, for your real light, for the part of you that never needed fixing, only space. You are not hollow, you are spacious, and that changes everything. Because when the inner room expands, it begins to echo with old songs, not of sorrow, but of truth. And then, something inside remembers how to obey. There is a lantern buried in the dark soil of your chest, a heartbeat older than the body, a silence that wants to be heard, a key made of memory, a name made of breath. This is the law of return. But what the water carries is never just reflection. It is translation. There is a tide moving through you. It doesn't ask permission. It enters like breath, floods like memory, and leaves behind the sediment of every emotion you've ever touched. Yours, and not yours. You were never taught how to hold this ocean, only how to hide it. They told you your tears were too quick, your moods too deep, your reactions too much. But they didn't understand. You weren't reacting. You were receiving. You don't feel emotions. You become them, and not just your own. You carry atmospheres. You walk into a room and something shifts. The smiles don't match the eyes. The words float, but the energy sinks. No one says it, but you feel it. The tension, the sadness, the hidden war beneath polite sentences. You don't need explanation. You feel the fracture before the floor breaks. You sense the goodbye before the door closes. It's not your imagination. It's your instrument, one that's been misunderstood for most of your life. So you learned to numb it, to dim it, to pretend it wasn't real. Because being fully awake in a sleeping world is exhausting. But this intensity isn't a problem. It's precision, a sacred technology built into your nervous system, an ancient scanner tuned to frequencies most have long forgotten. This is not fragility. This is finesse. Whisper it to yourself, like a secret your soul has always known. I was designed for depth. I was never meant to be surface level. And yet, the cost of this depth is often silence. Because how do you explain what you feel when others haven't yet learned to feel themselves? You become the emotional mirror no one asked for, the truth they didn't want to see, the storm they called dramatic, when all you were doing was honoring the weather. But what echoes back is not always what you spoke. There is a bowl in your chest that catches every drop, a mirror that keeps reflecting even when covered, a string that vibrates in someone else's silence, a gate that opens inward, a storm that teaches stillness. This is the gift of emotional resonance. But the question that returns is never just a question. It is a signal. There is a restlessness in you, not the kind that seeks more, the kind that seeks meaning. You've always felt it, in classrooms, in conversations, in instructions that expected your silence, and in systems that offered steps but no soul. You weren't trying to be difficult. You were trying to understand. While others accepted the surface, you listened beneath it. You asked, why do we believe this? Why are things done this way? Why do people smile when their hearts are breaking? And the answers you received were rarely satisfying. They were quick, convenient, hollow. But your mind wasn't built for convenience. It was built for coherence. There is a fire behind your eyes, a sacred defiance, not to rebel, but to reveal. You weren't trying to dismantle the world. You were trying to find where truth was hiding in it. This is what most never see. Your questions are not criticisms. They are invitations to feel deeper, to live wider, to remove the mask without shame. But truth can be threatening, especially in a world built on illusion. And so your questions were met with discomfort, dismissal, sometimes even rejection. They said you were overthinking, too intense, hard to please. But what if your dissatisfaction wasn't the problem? What if it was the signal that something wasn't aligned? Some truths only rise when someone dares to stay uncomfortable long enough. And you were willing to stay, even when it cost you closeness, even when it made you feel alone in a room full of people who had stopped asking. This is the gift and the weight of prophetic perception. You don't just see what is, you see what could be, what should be, what aches to be born. And that sight is not always welcomed, because vision demands change. You've likely noticed, your presence stirs something in others, not because you demand it, but because you embody it, an integrity that exposes what's been ignored, a clarity that disrupts comfort, a light that sharpens shadow. And yet, even this is not arrogance. It is responsibility, because to see clearly is to be accountable for what you now know. And then, something inside remembers how to obey. There is a page in the sky with your handwriting, a window in your chest that doesn't close, a lantern swinging above a forgotten map, a voice that never shouts but never stops, a bridge between the seen and the not yet seen. This is the intelligence of inquiry, but the quiet that follows protection is never just silence, it is sanctuary. There is a fortress inside you, not made of walls, made of choices, built slowly, moment by moment. When the world showed you it could not always hold you, you didn't wake up one day and decide to be strong. Life required it, not in grand moments, but in the small, repeated absences, the unmet needs, the conversations that never reached you, the hands that didn't stay. And so, you learned how to stand, even when it trembled, even when it ached. You called it survival, but it was more than that. It was sacred construction, a kind of soul architecture born from being unseen. Others call it coldness, but they never touched the origin. They never sat in the moment where you realized no one was coming. So you came for yourself. This is not isolation. This is maturity, the kind that arrives early in those whose hearts had to grow faster than their surroundings. You carry yourself now, not because you want to do it all alone, but because you remember what it felt like to depend and be dropped. So your self-reliance becomes your safety, But sometimes, it also becomes your armor. And that's the paradox. Because even as you long for real connection, you've become fluent in distance. Not because you want to push people away, but because letting them in feels like handing them the blueprint of your soul, without knowing if they'll treat it like glass or clay. You're not afraid of love. You're afraid of losing yourself in the process of receiving it. But here's what few understand. Your independence isn't stubbornness. It's sacred memory. A contract you made with yourself in the moments no one else showed up. This is your strength. And also, your tenderness. You don't need fixing. You need reverence. Because within that independence lives the child who had no choice but to grow, and the adult who now gets to decide how close is safe, how soft is allowed. Breathe as if the breath itself is remembering you. There is a room in you no one has entered, a garden still untouched, a gate guarded by the one who learned too soon, a lamp always burning, just in case someone comes with gentleness. This is the path of sacred self-containment, but what moves beneath the skin is never just instinct. It is translation from the unseen. There is a frequency in you, not louder but finer. It doesn't scream, it hums. A knowing that comes before the logic, before the words, before the facts try to catch up. You've always felt it, a sense that something is off, even when everything looks perfect. A whisper of truth hiding beneath smiles, a pressure in the air before anything falls apart. And yet, how many times have you doubted it? Not because it failed you, but because the world convinced you it was too strange, too dramatic, too inconvenient. You learned to override your knowing, to smile when you felt unrest, to agree when everything in your gut said no, to stay when something holy inside you was already walking away. But intuition does not unknow. It waits. It watches. It pulses behind your ribs until you remember. You were born with this compass. This isn't magic. This is biology and memory braided together. This is ancestral signal, spiritual technology, a nervous system that listens through time. It's how you read micro-expressions before they become actions. It's how you feel the unsaid tension in a room no one else can name. It's how you carry truths that others deny, and still speak with compassion. But here's the ache. When you know what others won't admit, you carry a kind of invisible burden, the weight of unspoken stories, the ache of seeing too much and being asked to pretend. And sometimes, that weight feels like madness, but it isn't. It's clarity without reflection. And clarity without reflection becomes loneliness, because when no one mirrors back what you feel, you begin to question the mirror itself. Place your hand here and feel. That isn't fear, that's discernment. And discernment is not judgment. It's protection. You are not imagining it. You are interpreting it. You are not paranoid. You are precise. But what echoes back is not always what you spoke. There is a drum in your chest that hears the future, a mirror that doesn't lie, even when you wish it would, a string between ribs that pulls when something's wrong, a temple where silence speaks, a map with no landmarks, only pulses. This is the language of sacred perception. But what outgrows its container is never rebellion. It is evolution. There was a time when you twisted yourself small, folded your light to match the room, bent your voice to meet the moment. And for a while, it worked. You felt accepted, seen, at least partially, held, at least conditionally. But something started shifting, quietly, almost imperceptibly. The laughter no longer reached your core. The rituals felt hollow. The conversations echoed without substance. And it hurt, not because of conflict, but because of contrast. You began to outgrow what once felt like home, not out of superiority, but authenticity. This is the grief no one talks about, the ache of becoming, the mourning of versions of yourself you no longer recognize, and the people who only knew how to love those versions. You didn't push them away. You simply stopped shrinking. And growth is a kind of departure, even when there's no goodbye, even when no one notices you've left. You became too real for performance, too quiet for noise, too honest for pretense. And suddenly, the spaces that once embraced you started asking you to pretend again, to dim again, to forget again. But your soul had already tasted freedom, and there's no untasting that. And so the dissonance grew. You stayed in places that no longer fit, until the staying hurt more than the leaving. This is the point of no return, when alignment costs connection, and you choose alignment anyway, not because it's easier, but because betraying yourself has become the deepest wound you can no longer carry. Whisper it to yourself, not as a declaration, but as a release. I didn't leave them. I returned to me. I didn't change too much. I remembered just enough. And then, something inside remembers how to obey. There is a doorway with no frame, a field with no fences, a sky that no longer lowers itself to match the ceiling, a name that cannot be pronounced by those who never listened, a path that only reveals itself as you walk away. This is the threshold of vibrational integrity, but what carries others so gently often forgets how to be carried. And still, it waits. You are the one they call when it all falls apart, the one who listens without rushing, the one who doesn't flinch at the mess, the one who stays, long after others would have looked away. You've become a sanctuary, not by profession but by essence. Your presence soothes, your silence heals. Your words soften the sharp edges others didn't even realize they were holding, and slowly, invisibly, you became the container. But here's what most will never see. You learned to hold others because no one knew how to hold you. You became the space because no one gave you one. You mastered empathy because you needed it so desperately once, and didn't find it. So you built it, inside yourself, and then offered it freely. But generosity without boundaries becomes erosion, and kindness without reciprocity becomes disappearance. And some part of you knows, you've disappeared more times than you can count. Not fully, not dramatically, but in small daily ways. You paused your tears to catch theirs. You silenced your ache to listen to theirs. You shrunk your truth to protect their comfort. And each time, something sacred in you whispered, "This isn't sustainable." But the world praised your selflessness. They called you strong, wise, so grounded. And you smiled, because the truth felt too complex to explain. But here, now, let this be said, you are not an infinite well. You are a sacred stream that also needs rain. Your softness is not a service. It is a soul texture, meant to be witnessed, not consumed. Place your hand here and feel. You deserve a presence that holds you without flinching, a gaze that asks, "How are you really?" and waits for the full answer, a love that doesn't mistake your strength for invincibility. And then, something inside remembers how to obey. There is a vessel cracked from overpouring, a prayer made of quiet exhaustion, a garden grown from unspoken grief, a temple of listening that now asks to be heard, a tide turning, finally, toward your own shoreline. This is the return to sacred reciprocity. But what pulses beneath clarity is not confusion, it is calling. There is a current moving through your life, not chaotic, but persistent. A gentle, aching urgency that says, there's more, even when everything looks fine, even when the checklist is complete. And maybe you've tried to silence it, tried to be content, tried to convince yourself that this is enough, but it returns, in quiet moments, in half dreams, in that sudden stillness before sleep, when all the distractions lose their grip and your soul dares to speak. It doesn't offer a plan. It doesn't give you details. It just lingers, like a forgotten word on the tip of your consciousness. This isn't restlessness. It's recognition, not of where you've been, but of where something in you knows you're meant to go. And here is the secret most never say out loud. You don't need proof to feel the pull. You don't need permission to feel the fire. What you carry is not ambition. It's alignment, a frequency that doesn't fit into job titles or 5-year plans or neat little boxes. Because what moves in you is older than goals. It is sacred architecture, a blueprint written before you forgot the language. And though it may feel blurry, like trying to read in water, there's one thing it's never been: wrong. You were made for something more, not more in size, more in soul. And yes, that makes ordinary life feel heavy sometimes, because you're not here to perform, you're here to become. This isn't pressure, it's permission to trust the ache, to listen to the longing, to stop apologizing for sensing something deeper, even if no one else sees it yet. Whisper it to yourself, as if you're telling a secret the stars already know. I don't know what it is yet, but I know it's real. I don't need the map. I am the direction. And then, something inside remembers how to obey. There is a song that has no melody but won't stop singing, a light that flickers even behind closed eyes, a breath that feels like prophecy, a road that isn't paved, but pulses, a knowing that doesn't ask to be explained, only honored. This is the signature of soul purpose. But what returns after all the shedding is never just identity. It is origin. You have not become something new. You have unwrapped what was sealed. You have listened, beneath the noise, beyond the ache, and found that the answers were never out there. They were always humming inside you. This journey you've walked, through silence, through sensitivity, through sacred dissonance, was not a detour. It was the map. Every loss you couldn't explain, every truth you couldn't deny, every ending that wasn't loud but irreversible, all of it led you here, not broken but brilliantly intact. You never lacked purpose, you lacked permission. And now the gate has opened. The science of your soul, the electricity of your thoughts, the frequencies of your feelings, all of it shaping the field around you, magnetizing not what you want, but what you are. You are not a mistake. You are a mirror of the sacred, an echo of something the world is only beginning to remember. You are not too much. The world is simply not yet enough, not yet ready, not yet still enough, not yet awake enough. But you came ahead of the tide, not to drown, to teach the ocean how to listen again. Neville once said, "Imagination is God in action." And when you imagine yourself as you truly are, not edited, not hidden, not performing, you activate something ancient, a divine permission, a cosmic exhale. You came to expand the frame, not to fit inside it. You came to hold the vibration of what's possible, even if no one else can name it yet. And you have. You are. You didn't just listen. You remembered. You didn't just feel seen. You saw yourself. And that is the seed of everything. This isn't something to learn. It's something to carry. A pulse, a promise, a presence. The truth was always beneath your breath. It is sealed. It is done.